Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Yes, that's where we are. Welcome, Maverick family. Welcome, everyone. We're an hour ahead today. Daylight savings time has kicked in. So, yeah, it's still light outside here today. And I hope you're having a bright, sunshiny day, too. But the world is a mess tonight, and it seems to be getting worse every day. And I didn't realize that the economy was collapsing this week because I was so focused on other news. And John called in a couple of nights ago and started talking about a bank that was having trouble, and I wasn't really cluing in. And I apologize for that because I should be paying closer attention, but so much information to absorb, and I've been so focused on other news that this one was this is a huge story, and it was really not, in my crosshairs. But we need to talk about this. We really do need to draw attention to it because this is huge. And it has been coming for a while. We've talked about it here, and you've been hearing about it on, from other news sources over the past few years, credible ones anyway, and financial experts who really know what they're talking about. I'm talking about the Silicon Valley Bank failure. Tonight, the bank is being auctioned. And regulators are holding an auction for Silicon Valley Bank. This all started, last week. Well, it started a long time before that, but it came to a head this past week. I've got some notes here that I've been taking. When the bank, Silicon Valley Bank, when their stock tanked. It was at a $600 high, went to $300, and this week dropped even more, losing 60% approximately of its value. The bank needed to raise cash to cover its bills. They announced that they needed, a couple of $1 billion. And this was a high-flying company, a high-flying bank. This was a bank that was viewed as one of the best in America, ranked as one of the best in America, not so very long ago. But this bank was focused on servicing the tech sector, and there's a lot of risk there. I think they had a fair bit of money loaned out to tech startups, and things weren't going quite as planned. Is that really surprising? I would say no. Why? Because the federal government in the US and Canada, the Western governments have been committed to a policy of modern monetary theory. That sounds pretty fancy, but it isn't. It's not complicated at all. Really, I've said this before. Modern monetary theory, you know what it really is? It's just print money, as much of it as you need, and don't stop. That's how they view the economy. That's their solution. Keynesian economics is based on the theories of John Maynard Keynes, Canadian, by the way, economist. But he was of the mind that when the economy slows down, government should print more money, inject more money into the economy, engage in things like public works projects to boost productivity, boost production, and put people to work to stimulate the economy. And then when the economy stabilizes and you get more growth, then you pull back on the government spending, throttle it back, pull back on the money supply so that you don't get too much inflation. The more money that's out there, the less that it's worth. It's simple supply and demand. You print more money, it becomes worth less. But by printing more money and putting it into the hands of people, it stimulates things. And when the government engages in growth projects like building highways, public works, right? Building more infrastructure, that can stimulate the economy. Anyway, but what has government been doing? They've been inflating economic bubbles. Instead of trying to stabilize the economy, they've been dumping tons of money into the economy every time the stock market tanks. Every time the economy slows down, they just turn on the printing press, print more money. Floods the market, the numbers go up. It looks like you're getting growth, but it's artificial, it's fake. The growth you're getting isn't worth the growth that you get because you're throwing more money into the system. So while that may stimulate some growth, the real growth comes from productivity, by manufacturing things, providing services to people. That's what is worth something, that's tangible, something that people can experience, that there's real value there. You build a road, it's worth something. You build a factory, it's worth something. In fact, it's worth more than a lot of like consumer goods, because it produces things continually. Anyway, government hasn't been engaged in stabilizing the economy. They've been engaged in inflating it. Modern monetary theory is really a commitment to inflation. And when you get more and more inflation, the idea is that the modern monetary theorists believe that the reason the economy crashes is because government pulls back. Well, they haven't been pulling back. They're just keeping their foot on the gas. At least since, well, even when Trump was president, they opened up the spigot and let the money flow. In many respects, they had to because of the pandemic. If they were going to shut businesses down, as they did here in Canada and in the US, then they had to do something to prevent people from starving to death. So they gave away a lot of free money. But productivity didn't increase. Oh, and the modern monetary theorists said, don't worry about inflation. It's not a big deal. It's not going to happen. But we've been getting inflation. You're more money, less productivity, factories shut down. This is just the delayed impact from all of those economic policies. And then you get the banks. They're in the business of loaning money. They loan money out to high-risk companies in the tech sector. Many of them end up failing. They're really selling debt to collect more money back in the future. But when these companies don't succeed or their value drops in the stock market, there is no future. And when people realize that that's what's going on, the stock prices tank. And when the stock prices tank, people start to lose money. They have to raise more funds. They go out to try to sell more stock. But what they're trying to sell isn't worth what they're going to end up owing you, because the only thing they're selling is debt, but they already have so much debt that they become insolvent. Mark my words, this is the tip of the iceberg. It's a big, big, big problem. And people who had deposits with Silicon Valley Bank are in trouble if they had a lot invested in there, because the FDIC only insures up to $250,000. And after that, if you had more money, if you had millions of dollars on deposit, you could lose all of it, except for 250 grand. If you had 5 million, you'll lose the rest. And because SVB had such a stellar reputation and was being promoted really through media for so long, a lot of people flocked to the bank. They gravitated toward it. Just yesterday, we mentioned that Prince Harry and Meghan had a lot, if not all of their money invested in SVB Bank, deposited there. Now, I said, don't worry about them. I think they'll be fine. I mean, they're part of the royal family, even though they don't want the obligations and don't want to do the work of what a royal is supposed to do. They just want to live their lives, keep their money. They'll be okay. They're not going to be living in poverty. But others will, potentially, if the government doesn't step up and bail people out. Back in 2008, the government did bail out the banks. And the United States, Western economies were on the edge. If the government hadn't stepped in, we would have had a big crash. We could have one right now. This is the biggest financial crisis since 2008. And I remember 2008. I mean, it just on a personal level, I felt the impact almost immediately, even through my business, which at the time, as an independent producer of television programming, we had our own sponsors, and we lost overnight in 2008 when the financial crisis hit. We lost almost overnight, probably 50% of our clients at that time. And we've never recovered. And right now, we actually have no sponsors. Today, we have none. I don't rely on them. Zero. I learned my lesson back in 2008. I downsized, became more independent, less reliant on the system, so that I could be freer. Don't rely on the system. Find ways around it. So we've become more independent. Not relying on any sponsors. Because back in 2008, it collapsed. I mean, we were okay, but we survived. I survived. I'm just a small guy. But a lot of people didn't. And I remember back then, back in 2000, early 2000s, sometimes I would go to Chicago. And this is just one of the things that really just stuck with me. In early 2000s, I would make, maybe 1 or 2 trips to Chicago every year. And I'd drive here from Ontario down through Detroit and then over to Chicago. And I would stop at some of these outlet malls sometimes to take a break and stroll through. And prior to 2008, the malls were full and the people were there and it was busy and they had all kinds of different stores and everything was fully stocked. It was supply side economics, I think, really, in a way, that was on display there in those malls. And I remember stopping in. Warner Brothers had stores where you could go in and buy collectibles, Batman stuff and giftware and all those kinds of entertainment-related consumer goods. And then the 2008 crisis hit, and I went back to Chicago shortly after that. And when you stopped at those outlet malls, at least a third of the stores were closed. Warner Brothers stores, not there anymore. All those sort of discretionary consumer items, people stopped buying them. And yeah, even the toy stores, not as fully stocked. And if you think about it, about the way the economy has evolved since then, when Trump got into office, there were a couple of years there where the economy really started to grow again. When he was in office, there was increased productivity, but then the pandemic hit and the debt exploded again as quantitative easing continued. They printed more money. They put more free money into the hands of people because of the pandemic. And in Canada, it's out of control, man. Like on the Canadian side, we never recovered. We never had that same increase in productivity that they had in the US when Trump was in office. We benefited maybe that much, but because of the economic policies on the Canadian side, we never got that growth spurt that they had in the US. So we've never actually recovered from 2008 fully. Never have, in my opinion, in my observations. And now, just today, I met a friend at a store when I was out. I don't go out a lot, but I went out today and I ran into a friend of mine. He runs I don't want to say his name, but he runs a shop. And especially over the last 3 years, they've had to completely change his retail operation, right? It's a specialty store for women, and they've had to completely change the way that they do business just to survive. And it's not that they're in trouble or anything, but they've really had to change because, as he said, it's business is just not what it used to be. So they've had to shift. They're more service oriented now. They're even experimenting with restaurant instead of retail goods. So it's a different time, and it's because we've never actually fully recovered, even from 2008. And our governments continue to just print money, spend money, send money overseas. Justin Trudeau gets into office, and he just throws the money around all over the world. Here's a couple of billion for you and a couple $100 million for you. And then now the war, money for that, but not money for the homeless, not money for people in need here, not money for our veterans. Can't afford that. It's insane. And this SVB bank failure, this is huge. This is going to affect you. One way or another, we're all going to end up paying for this. Because the government, even though they're saying they're not going to bail out SVB, they're going to bail out SVB. Maybe not directly. Maybe they'll let that particular bank fail, but there will be more. And one way or another, we're going to pay for it, because even if they don't bail out the bank, that will create more economic turmoil, economic contraction, and we'll pay for it that way. If they do bail out the bank, and other banks are probably going to need assistance as well if they want to keep them afloat. So if the government steps up again with bailout money, where does that come from? From us, the taxpayers. But they won't be able to tax the middle class or the poor. And even if they try to tax the rich, it will probably backfire because they always have ways to get around it. They'll just move their investments and their money out of the country. They can do that. They have ways. So it could be very difficult for the government to come up with any money through taxation to combat this problem of economic contraction, which is what you're really seeing through the SVB bank failure. So they'll recommit themselves, quintuple down on quantitative easing and their modern monetary theory, which is to just print money. Don't take your foot off the gas. Just keep on printing money. And you know what that means? That means more inflation. It's a commitment to more inflation. And you know who suffers because of that? We do. That's how you end up paying. That's a dishonest tax. It's a regressive tax. It's a form of taxation. Printing money is a form of taxation. They give you free money and they say, here's free money, but it's not free at all. You know who ends up paying? The people who go to work. Because you're working and saving and trying to build something for your family and for your future, and they just print more money. So if you lose, the CPI was supposed to be around 2% a couple of years ago, and they said, see, inflation isn't a problem. We're just going to keep printing money, and it's a problem. It's just catching up with us now because the official inflation rate, I think in the States is, in the US side, it's around 7% or something like that. The reality is it's higher. They just don't calculate inflation in the consumer price index in the same way that they did even back in the 1980s. It was calculated differently. They do it to make it look better than it is. They use methods to kind of cook the data. And that's really just a simple matter of selecting, the consumer price index is really just looking at a basket of goods and services as a sample size and saying, oh, look, here's what it was then, and here's what it is now. And this is the percentage that it's increased. They take into consideration things like the price of fuel and groceries, and then they come up with a number. But if you go to the grocery store and you walk through and you look at the prices of things, you tell me, have prices increased only like 7%? No. I was walking through the grocery store this week and I just looked at like a 2-liter bottle of no-name soda I noticed on the shelf that used to be 99 cents is now $1.25 Canadian. Well, that's over 20%, 25%. And that's not the only thing, I sometimes buy fish. Fish that was $10 is now $15.99. That's a little more than 7%. That's inflation. That's because of all the money printing combined with lower productivity. And then my friend who I met in the store today, who has his retail shop, he's telling me that he can't even get anybody reliable to work in his shop. People don't want to work, he says. It's true. It's absolutely true. Filling those, $15, $16 an hour service jobs is very, very difficult. Everywhere you go, if you want a job, you can go get a job for $15 or $16 an hour. There are plenty of them out there because the stores can't fill them. Why? Because they have so many people, in Canada anyway, on social assistance. And then we heard the Communist Party of Canada leaders stand up there a few nights ago. We ran the news conference out of Ottawa where they were talking about, she said that this made me laugh. They want people who lose their jobs to be able to collect 90% of their wage indefinitely until they find another job. That is insane. That is why we have the kinds of problems we have right now. If you give someone 90% of their wage for the rest of their life until they find another job, though they can just keep collecting it indefinitely, they're not going to go get another job, man. You're further ahead to sit at home and collect your 90% from the government than to go get another job that might pay you 100% of what you used to make if you're lucky. And employment insurance, or they used to call it unemployment insurance, but here in Canada, they now call it employment insurance. It delays reentry into the job market for people. It delays people getting back into the job market. That is a statistical, quantifiable, provable fact. Studies have shown that over and over again. When you are on employment insurance or assistance after losing a job, you collect a percentage of your wage. And therefore, it sometimes pays you more to stay at home, most often, especially if you had a good paying job, rather than go get another job that might pay you less money than the job you used to have. So if you were making $35 per hour plus benefits and perks, are you going to then go and get a $15 an hour job? Not if the government's already paying you the equivalent of, say, $17 an hour through employment insurance. It's going to delay your re-entry into the workforce. It's just the way it is. I don't begrudge anybody some assistance and a hand up so that they can go and find proper employment that matches their skill set. I think sometimes it's okay to maybe delay somebody's reentry into the workforce, because it maybe doesn't serve the economy or the community well to have someone not re-enter the workforce at a level that is consistent with what their skill sets are. So you're not making maximum use of that person and their skills. Doesn't make sense to have a doctor lose a job and then go to work flipping burgers. Maybe it's better to have them delay their reentry into the workforce so that they can get another job being a doctor. But 90% of your wage indefinitely, who's going to go back to work? You have to have limits. Anyway, that's a sidetrack. The biggest problem we have right now is SVB, because that is sending shockwaves all the way through the economy. And today, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Face the Nation, CBS, she says no bailout for SVB coming. No bailout. Well, I'll tell you, tomorrow, everybody's looking ahead to tomorrow. Everybody who has money, had money, if there is any money, with SVB, they're looking at tomorrow morning. Because last week we already saw bank runs, people trying to take money out of banks, not just SVB, but other banks too, that have been affected by what happened with SVB, including Wells Fargo. People lined up. They've lost confidence in these banks. People are scared. This is not good. Dangerous, actually. Very dangerous. How bad is it going to get? I don't know. I'll tell you this. One of the reasons, though, that this was not in my crosshairs is because the media really didn't report on it adequately over the past week. Even tonight, it's not really making major headlines, but it should be. It absolutely should be. This has the potential to plunge us into a really severe recession, and I think it probably will, or maybe even a depression. We've known this is coming for a long time. The government can only print so much money. I don't care what the modern monetary theorists say. I know that the laws of supply and demand eventually become undeniable. You can't stop Mother Nature, and the forces of economics are based on the forces of nature. What goes up must come down. If you have more of something, it becomes worth less in the marketplace. you can try to artificially inflate things, and you might get away with it for a little while because you can engage in sort of smoke and mirrors and cloak and dagger and sleight of hand, and the government can make things appear certain ways because they create market distortions. But at the end of the day, in the long run, one way or another, the laws of supply and demand, the laws of economics take hold, and things come crashing down when people manipulate things in unnatural ways. This is what we are experiencing now. This is the result of giving people a whole bunch of free money without increasing productivity. That's the problem with excessive government control over the economy, central planning. Leave people alone, and yeah, you'll get ups and downs in the economy, and they'll blame all this. You know what they'll blame this on? Capitalism. This is not because of capitalism. Well, in a way, it's capitalism because it's the manipulation of capital. Capital, the definition of capital in this case being money. Capital can also be physical capital. That could be the other definition of it, like manufacturing capital, right? Like machinery in a factory. That's physical capital. But when you're talking about capital, we're talking about money as capital. Yes, it's capitalism, but it's socialistic capitalism, corporatism, abusing capital, manipulating capital, money capital. The federal government engaging in the abuse of capital, the abuse of you, really. It's because we're off the gold standard. And they're doing actually exactly what Hitler did with his economic policies, where they backed up their currency with labor, that being you, the people, instead of with gold or anything physical. That's what they supported their economy with. It's a complicated concept, but that's really what we have going on here now, because Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard in the West, based it sort of on the price of oil by forcing Saudi Arabia and other countries to buy all oil in U.S. dollars to prop up the U.S. dollar. And now everything's falling apart because it's not really just based on the dollar. It's also based on labor. We're not on the gold standard anymore. Oil, the future of oil, is shaky because of this commitment to electric vehicles and a decarbonized future and all of these globalist utopian ideas of what the green future is supposed to be. This is insane. This is the United States shooting itself in the foot on purpose. A dollar that's predicated on the value of oil because you force other countries to purchase oil, but then you use economics as a weapon and you're sanctioning all these other countries so that they don't even want to do business with you anymore. And you're really backing it up with the labor of the people. And then you tax the crap out of the people indirectly and in a way that they don't understand by just continuing to print money so that the money that they're making when they're going to work every day becomes worth less and less and less and less and less over time. So that if you do the responsible thing and you're saving your cash and you're putting it in the bank and you're working for the future to save for your family and your retirement, and then the government and these people who live high off the hog find that things don't go quite their way, they just print more money. And then your money, the savings that you've had, if you're losing in the last, think about it, in the last couple of years here in Canada, where the inflation rate they say is, 5, 6, 7, 8%. Well, even if it is that, you've just lost like what, 16% of the value of the money that you had sitting in the bank. And what's the bank pay you back on interest rate in a savings account? Like nothing. Money's not worth anything, man. You just lost 16%. And the reality is you're paying much more than that for goods and services now. The inflation rate is higher than that. So over 2 years, if it was 12%, and I'll say that we'll go with 12. I think it's higher, but we'll say 12. Over 2 years, you've lost 24% of the value of your dollar. So you go to the store, you try to buy stuff, everything's more expensive. Now, if you're a retiree, you're on a fixed income, you just lost almost a quarter of your spending power. Go another 2 years at 12%, 12%. You've lost half in 4 years. Your money's worth half. That's a tax on you. And I'll tell you this, the people, the elites, the well-heeled, the rich, the capitalists, who are not committed to free markets, which is what I'm really, when I think of capitalism, I think of free markets, right? People free to engage in commerce and trade the way they want to engage in trade without government interference or with minimal government interference. That's a free market. That to me is capitalism. That's what capitalism should be. People don't understand that. What they're engaged in is the abuse of capital. And when they want to abuse you a little bit more, they manipulate the markets. The government manipulates the market by printing more money. And the people with all the money, the really, really rich, they use their strategies of investing and getting out of certain stocks and investments. And they just move their money around to avoid taxes, to avoid losses. And when the stock market tanks, like they have so much money that they can manipulate the stock market just by moving huge blocks, by selling off huge blocks of stock at a time. Elon Musk can shape the stock market. Warren Buffett can manipulate the stock market just by selling stuff off. They just speak and people listen, and that causes stock prices to go up or down. And they can buy and sell their stocks based just on that to make a fortune in one day. And when the prices and the values of things tank because of the crap that goes on with banks like SVB, where they've, again, abused the capital of the people, the depositors who put it in there, when they abuse the capital, you end up suffering. And then the people with the big money can come in and buy up your assets for pennies on the dollar because you don't have enough capital. You don't have enough wealth to defend yourself. You're just trying to survive like me and everybody else, right? We just have enough to get by. We have enough to pay our mortgage over 20 or 30 years, maybe pay off our houses and use that as a nest egg for the future. When they manipulate the currency like this, just keep on printing money and then give it away. And you know what? In a way, we have nobody to blame but ourselves because we keep voting for it. We vote for socialism, for free stuff. To some degree, yeah, government has a role to play in supporting the people, right? Supporting people through different services that we need to avail ourselves of. There's a role for government to play, but honestly, we as a society have become greedy too, and a little fat, maybe a lot fat, and have taken a lot of it for granted. And because we don't have the kind of funds, the capital that the elites have, we're looking for security as a society. So we vote for more and more and more of it. But the more you vote for it, the less choice you have. Take healthcare, for example. In Canada, there really is very little, very, very little in the way of private healthcare choice. So they hold you hostage. They hold your healthcare hostage. You don't have any choice. You can only go to a government-run hospital. Your doctor is paid by the government. And if you don't like your doctor, you're probably out of luck because there probably isn't another one in town. I don't have a family doctor here in town. I've never had one the whole time I've lived here in this city. That's a long time, like 20 years. I have to go to walk-in clinics. And those doctors are paid by the government. And now there isn't even, most of the time, there isn't even a doctor here. It's telehealth. I'm talking to some doctor over a computer screen in Toronto, over 3 hours away. And it's okay, but it's not what it used to be. Everything's crashing down around us. They manipulate the money. They manipulate the money supply. They manipulate the stock market because it's not a free market. It's corporatism. It's economic fascism. It's a form of socialism. Marxism, Marxists have their version of socialism. Fascists have their version of socialism. What we have is sort of a hybrid system. And again, people keep voting for it. They've been voting for it here in Canada, especially for decades, especially since the 60s. And we get more and more and more of it. And it is a trap. It's a trap. Every time the government gives you more, you give up a little bit more of your freedom. That's where we're headed. Let's go to the clip of Janet Yellen on CBS Face the Nation talking about no bailout. We'll see if that's true.
Good morning, Margaret.
I want to get straight to it because the markets will soon reopen for trading. Does the government need to intervene and take emergency measures because of SVB's failure?
Well, let me say America's economy relies on a safe and sound banking system that can provide for the credit needs of our households and businesses. So whenever a bank, especially one like Silicon Valley Bank with billions of dollars in deposits, fails, it's clearly a concern. From the standpoint of depositors, many of which may be small businesses, they rely on access to their funds to be able to pay the bills that they have, and they employ tens of thousands of people across the country. We've been hearing from those depositors and other concerned people this weekend. So let me say that I've been working all weekend with our banking regulators to design appropriate policies to address this situation. I can't really provide further details at this time, but what I do want to do is emphasize that the American banking system is really safe and well capitalized. It's resilient.
Can you say whether these problems were unique to Silicon Valley Bank, or can you say whether there will be other regional bank failures?
Well, look, let me just say that we want to make sure that the troubles that exist at one bank don't create contagion to others that are sound, and a goal always of supervision and regulation is to make sure that contagion can't occur.
Your counterpart in the United Kingdom has said that the government there has ruled out a bailout of the UK arm of Silicon Valley Bank. Have you also ruled out that kind of government intervention?
Well, let me be clear that during the financial crisis, there were investors and owners of systemic large banks that were bailed out, and we're certainly not looking and The reforms that have been put in place means that we're not going to do that again, but we are concerned about depositors and are focused on trying to meet their needs.
Do you expect a deal?
So that's part one of that. So if you're listening to what is being said there very carefully, she's saying they're not going to bail out the bank, but they're looking at doing something for the depositors. What will that look like? I don't know. My guess is they're going to do something, and they don't have much room to maneuver. They don't have much room to maneuver because they can't, the money has to come from someplace. Where does the FDIC get the money? From the government. Where does the government get the money? From the taxpayers. And if they can't tax the middle class, and they're not going to tax it from the rich, and they certainly can't get it from the poor, they're going to have to engage in quantitative easing and selling bonds. So it has to come that way. That means the public ends up paying again. So who are they really going to be bailing out? People with more than $250,000 deposited. Those are the rich people, dudes. Yeah, that's who it is. Rich people, generally. Maybe not all super rich people. But if you've got over $250,000 on deposit at a bank, how many people have that kind of money on deposit at a bank? I wouldn't say a large percentage of people have that much. Most people have maybe enough to get by for a week or two. That's about it. Maybe one mortgage payment away from bankruptcy. But a lot of people, there are a lot of people with some money in there beyond that 250 grand. And if that money evaporates, that will send big shockwaves through the system too. Not easy. Let's take a break. And when we come back, more of Janet Yellen addressing this huge issue facing not just the U.S. economy, but the world economy, at least the Western economies. That is for sure. Don't go away. Oh, hang on a second.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so Janet Yellen saying no bailout for the bank, but maybe for the depositors. They are working overtime right now. I'm telling you. On some way to save the economy. That's what they're doing. That's what they've been doing all weekend. That's what they're going to continue doing tonight. And tomorrow morning, people are going to want their money. That's what a run on the bank is going to look like. And they are in a difficult position. Let's go back to Janet Yellen and what she had to say on Face the Nation on CBS in response to this, what appears to be an imminent economic crisis.
Meet their needs.
Do you expect a deal or something to happen that can reassure the markets before Asia opens tonight and U.S. markets open tomorrow?
We certainly are working to address this situation in a timely way.
Now, I know you know this region of the country so well because you served at the San Francisco Fed years ago. The tech sector has already been suffering from layoffs. It's already under pressure, and this is really the hub of American innovation. How severe will the consequences be for that innovation?
I think it depends on how this situation is resolved, but well aware that many startup firms have deposits and venture capital firms have deposits at this bank that have been affected by its failure. So this is something we're working to try to resolve.
You know, when you look big picture at this bank had massive exposure to this one particular industry. How did government regulators miss that risk?
I would say that although the tech sector has been suffering from a downturn and has had some significant layoffs, the problems of this bank from reporting about its situation suggest that because we're in a higher interest rate environment, assets that it holds, many of which are Treasury assets or mortgage-backed securities that are guaranteed by the government, lose market value. And the problems of the tech sector aren't at the heart of the problems of this bank.
Do you foresee what's happening now as making it harder for Fed Chair Powell to continue with the kind of rate hikes he's indicated he plans?
The Federal Reserve is independent and charged with making judgments about what the appropriate course of action is to address financial risks and also to achieve their inflation and employment goals. And I'm not going to comment on what the appropriate response is for them. They will be evaluating this in the days and weeks to come.
Would you be open to a foreign bank coming in as a white knight to help stabilize the situation with Silicon Valley Bank?
So this is really a decision for the FDIC as it decides on what the best course is to resolve this firm. And I'm sure they're considering a wide range of available options that would include acquisitions.
Madam Secretary, I'm told you are tight on time, and I have to leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
It's a crisis. It is a crisis. And it's not just one bank. Really didn't hear much about it in the media at first. You're starting to now. It's something you can't ignore. I think in the beginning, they were trying to ignore it. In denial, essentially. Even the stock market wasn't down that much when SVB Bank, when it tanked, and even when they shut it down, the stock market didn't really lose that much in terms of value. Dow Jones didn't go down that much, but it's gonna, I think. Now, I should say, I have to say, I'm not a professional financial planner. You should not take investment advice from me. If you are going to buy or sell stocks or make any other decisions for your financial future, get other information, educate yourself well. Don't just take what I'm saying here to heart and act just on what I'm saying here tonight. This is my opinion, and it should really be taken as nothing more than that. I'm laying out some facts and some stories from other news sources to give you a broad perspective on this, but don't invest your money based on what I'm telling you. Okay? Just don't do that. But also make sure who you're getting your advice from, because a lot of these professionals, I think, have advised people in ways that have left them extremely vulnerable at this moment. So I hope your portfolio for your retirement is well diversified. If you have anything socked away for the future, for your old age. But, look at, let's just take a look at what some of these other mainstream media outlets are focused on tonight. Oh, as the economy is collapsing, ABC is covering the Oscars live. And where is the SVB story? I don't know if it's even on their front page. I think they're just very focused on the Oscars, which I used to care about when I was younger, but not so much anymore. What about CNN? They've got it. U.S. regulators bail at SVB customers as second bank fails. So they're on it. NBC also has it because it is coming to the surface. Can't be ignored anymore. It's a crisis bubbling to the surface. Treasury says it will back Silicon Valley Bank deposits. We will see what that looks like tomorrow and through the week. Hold on to your wallets. We're in for a rough ride, I think, folks. In the days, the weeks, the months, and maybe even the years ahead, this is, as I say, the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure of it because it feels very much like what happened in 2008. This is because of all the money printing, free stuff, promises from politicians, empty promises. We're going to give you this, we're going to give you that, and it just gets ridiculous. I remember even in the last provincial election here in Ontario, Canada, where I live, there was a Liberal politician who was promising, if elected, to buy everyone free snow tires. There seems to be no limit to the ways in which they are willing to spend our money to buy our votes. Free snow tires. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But how do you stop people from voting for that? Well, I want my free snow tires. Into the ballot booth they go and cast their vote. It's a trap. Just looking in the chat here a little bit. I don't know, folks. Like I said, feels a lot like 2008. kind of similar, a little bit different. In 2008, it was, the collapse of the real estate market because banks had been told that they had to lend money to people who couldn't actually afford the mortgages that they were writing and that they were taking out. As a result, you got a lot of defaults, and finally things collapsed. The economy looked like it was growing back then because you had all these people buying homes, because the banks were giving mortgages to people who were on shaky financial ground, and it was expanding the market out. And so that looked pretty good on paper for a while until you got a little bit of a bump in the interest rates and they couldn't afford the payments anymore. And there were other factors that came into play. And the result was a lot of people ended up defaulting on their mortgages, on their loans. The banks didn't have enough money to cover things, and you got a crash. Government had to step in, bail out the banks. And while some of it was the fault of the banks themselves, it was also government, because the government said to them, you can't discriminate against certain groups of people, and it doesn't matter if they can't really afford to pay based on this criteria. You must give them the loans to buy the houses. That was one of the major reasons. It was government policies. Now today, it's kind of a repeat in a way, but it's all coming out of Silicon Valley with this one particular bank, but this will reverberate through the economy. Send shockwaves. It's already, already seeing it happen in a way that is impacting not just banks in the US, but even here in Canada. So tomorrow, it will be very interesting to see what happens. The government could potentially stabilize things again for a while by printing more money, injecting more cash into the system, but then you're going to get even more inflation. We are on the verge, like the government has backed itself into a corner because you have high inflation, but you have degrowth. So how do you deal with stagflation? They're in a no-win situation no matter what they do, and the worse things get because they have so much debt. How do you deal with this? Where's the money come from to bail out the depositors at a bank that defaults, becomes insolvent? And a lot of these other banks, honestly, especially on the US side, a lot of them are kind of insolvent because they don't have the money on hand to give to you if you have it on deposit with them. They have all their money wrapped up in mortgages, loans, and some of those assets are not worth the paper that those loans are written on. So if they get a run on the banks, other banks could collapse too. And if the federal government doesn't have enough to prop them up, then we're in a lot of trouble. And the only thing that keeps it all going is confidence in the system. A belief that if you put the money in, it's going to be safe. If you invest money in something, that you will get it back with a return on your investment, that's actually going to happen. But when that confidence is broken, and then everything starts to fall apart. That's why you're seeing the run on the banks. That's why even the US is playing a dangerous game when they are dealing in financial terms with other countries like China, where we basically owe them a lot of money. We owe China a lot of money. We get cheap goods from them. They produce everything, and then we pay for it with money that is printed on a printing press. But once they figure out that we can't actually pay this debt off internationally, that it's all a shell game, a Ponzi scheme, when that confidence is broken, then we're in a lot of trouble. Then you have a sovereign debt crisis. Eventually, that is kind of probably where it's going to go. Because our politicians have, through their corrupt behavior, and because they've taken advantage of the general greed of mankind, honestly, by promising a lot of free stuff that they purchase with our own money, which is financed with, it's really money from the future. It's just a bad, bad cycle. That's my take on it tonight. Take it for what it's worth. Maybe you see things differently. I've been saying for years that this is coming. Will they print more money and inflate the balloon even bigger to kick the can down the road? We'll see what they do this week. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see what happens with the stock markets, even overnight, the international stock markets. We will see. Comes down to confidence. And you know, these things too, this is the stuff that leads to wars. It's one of the reasons I believe that we are fighting right now this war through Ukraine with Russia. It's to do a few things. It's to take your eye off the economic ball and focus it on the conflict. It's to create essentially a public works project through the military industrial complex where a lot of money is spent. And some of the really rich people can skim a lot of that money off the top. By funneling it through, or maybe even laundering it through Ukraine. And through the process, if you gain territory, gain land, you can actually confiscate wealth from other countries. And I think it's also been about energy and preventing Russia from selling their energy to Europe and then trying to bolster the economy by forcing European countries like Germany to purchase energy from the West, which is far less efficient and will ultimately cost more. You saw them blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. Somebody did that. I think I know who. And anytime economies go into the crapper, you end up usually with a war of some kind. And there's so much going on right now that echoes or rhymes with history when you look back at the origins of World War II. So much. And coming up, I have video that in a way shows more evidence of that. A conflict in Ohio between a bunch of Nazis, freedom fighters, drag queen story time supporters. Talk about a circus. We've got video of that coming up later. And when I say that's a reflection or a way of history rhyming, it's because prior to World War II in Germany, a lot of these same kinds of things were happening. Probably a lot of people aren't aware of their history in that regard, but if you go and look at what was going on in Berlin before the rise of Hitler, it was because that city and German society suffering economically because of high inflation and the penalties imposed upon it because of losing World War I and being forced to pay reparations. Berlin had turned into a sin city. It was sort of and it was fueling a lot of the same conflict that we're seeing today over issues like drag queen story times for kids and transgenderism and polarization politically of peoples. But at the heart of it all is the economy. And people are scared. And inflation is just about out of control right now. So in Canada, March 28th, the federal government is ready to table or put forward its next budget. It's a big deal. If it doesn't pass, that would become a vote of non-confidence, could lead to an election. Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, today laying out his expectations and even demands for what he would like to see in the upcoming federal budget. We have Pierre queued up here and ready to roll. Let's listen to what he has to say about the budget and the economy and his concerns about inflation and monetary policy and the budget in Canada. This is a reflection of what's coming internationally.
There's no common sense. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, inflation is rising faster than at any time in 40 years because of the $500 billion of inflationary deficits he has piled on. Those deficits increase both inflation and interest rates, which have caused monthly mortgage payments to skyrocket for everyday Canadians. His carbon tax makes food, gas, and groceries more expensive, which means that now 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals because they cannot afford the price of food. 9 in 10 young people say they'll never be able to afford a home because inflationary deficits drive up interest on mortgage payments and local bureaucracies block construction. Everything feels broken. Most of all, the deal is broken. The deal that if you work hard, you get a house, good food, a good living, and a good life. That deal has been broken, and Justin Trudeau is the one who broke it with his inflationary policies. The budget is coming. Conservatives want the budget to make Canada again a country that works for the people who've done the work. We have 3 demands. 1, bring home powerful paychecks with lower taxes that reward work. We have a war on work in this country. A single mom earning $60,000 a year who has 3 kids earns another dollar. She loses 80 cents in income tax, payroll tax, and benefit clawbacks. That punishes work. The people who do the nation's work are punished more and more each day in this country. We wonder why we have a labor shortage. You punish work, you get less work. But conservatives want this budget to reform and cut taxes and clawbacks so people bring home more of each dollar they earn so that hard work once again pays off. 2, we need to bring home lower prices by ending the inflationary carbon tax hikes and deficits. That means capping spending. We propose cutting back on high-priced consultants that now cost $1,400 for every household in Canada. Cutting back on bloated waste in government and bringing in a legal dollar-for-dollar cap on spending. Every dollar of new spending in this budget should be matched with a dollar of savings so that taxpayers and the economy can catch up with the exorbitant cost of government under Justin Trudeau. Getting rid of these taxes and deficits will lower the cost of gas, heat, and groceries and will bring down interest rates so that Canadians can afford their mortgage payments once again. 3rd, bring homes people can afford by removing the government gatekeepers, freeing up land, and speeding up building permits. Right now, Canada is ranked 64th in the world for the time it takes to get a building permit. We have the fewest houses per capita in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. No wonder our housing affordability crisis is the 5th worst on planet Earth. Countries with much less land, more people, and more money are paying less for real estate. Why? Government gatekeepers prevent us from building. Government gatekeepers add as much as $600,000 to a unit of housing in Vancouver, and about $350,000 to the cost in Toronto. Now, these gatekeepers are local, but the federal government sends them infrastructure money. and it's time to crack down on the gatekeepers. Enough sending big fat checks to municipal politicians who are causing homelessness and poverty by blocking home building. Our Conservatives want financial penalties for big cities that stand in the way of construction and building bonuses in the form of higher infrastructure transfers to those cities that get out of the way and let houses get built. Remove the gatekeepers, build more homes, bring homes that people can afford. In essence, Conservatives want a country that works for the people who've done the work. The senior who can't pay her heating bill because of the rising carbon tax. The 30-year-old who's working hard and doing everything right but loses his paycheck to higher taxes and therefore cannot afford a home. The people who honored their end of the deal, got a job, worked hard, contributed, but are living in poverty. It is for them that we fight, those who work hard, pay their taxes, and play by the rules. It is the common sense of the common people, united for our common home, Canada. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you. Thank you. Who's going to say a quick word? This is my Shadow Minister of Finance, for all who don't know, but you all should know because he's the best Shadow Minister of Finance around. A businessman, a hard worker, trained in finance, and a strong voice for the people of Calgary and all of Canada. Fire away.
Thank you, Leader. As the Leader said, Canadians, hardworking Canadians, have kept up with their end of the deal. Justin Trudeau has not only not kept up with his end of the deal, but he's broken the deal. This is forcing 1 in 5 Canadians to skip meals. 1.5 million Canadians were visiting a food bank in a single month. In my riding, I remember a single mom when I was door knocking who had a for sale sign on her house. And when I went up to the door and spoke with her, she just was laid off from her energy sector job. And she showed me her energy bill. And she said, I've been heating my home for years. Why am I being forced to pay for something I've been doing normally for many years before? And she was talking about the job killing, economy killing carbon tax. And because of Justin Trudeau's deficit spending and for spending more money than all prime ministers before him combined, she's had to put her house up for sale because she just cannot afford to feed her kids and to pay her mortgage payments any longer. This is Justin Trudeau's Canada after 8 years of his failures. My family came here with very little, and I'm very proud to be with a leader who came up from very little. But this country gave families like his and mine and many others an opportunity. That opportunity after 8 years of Justin Trudeau is lost, where now we see 1 in 5 newcomers want to pack up and leave. And the number one cause of that is the high cost of living. Justin Trudeau's deficits are not only driving away talent, but they're making more and more people go into food banks. We just saw a Mississauga food bank had a 41% increase in usage year over year, just in January alone. This is Justin Trudeau's Canada. Justin Trudeau needs to live up to his end of the deal, while hardworking Canadians continue to live up to theirs. Let's bring it home.
Can you address the Inflation Reduction Act from President Biden? They're pumping more than $300 billion into the economy. What do you think a Canadian government needs to do to compete in this budget?
We need to open Canada up for business, to bring home more of our mines, our manufacturing, and our jobs back to this country. The biggest obstacle is that you can't get anything built in Canada. We're ranked 64th in the world for the time it takes to get a building permit. By the government's own admission, it takes up to 25 years to get a permit to build a mine. We've been talking about, you want to talk about the green economy. What do you need? Minerals, lithium. 2021, we mined not a single tablespoon of lithium in Canada for electric car batteries, even though we have the 6th biggest supply. Why? Because it takes forever to get a permit to dig a mine in this country. I spoke to First Nations leaders from the Ring of Fire in Northern Ontario. They were telling me they've spent $50 million to get a permit for a highway to get to the eventual mine. Forget the permits for the mines themselves. You know how much of that highway's been built? Not a single meter. I asked them if the shovel was in the ground, and they said the snow shovel is in the ground because they have snow roads. If you want to build, you need to get the government gatekeepers out of the way to bring home our mines, our factories, and our jobs back to this country. That's the biggest obstacle to this. The second thing is we need to get the punishing taxes off of the backs of our industrial production. We give money to businesses to ship our jobs and our technology to other countries under Justin Trudeau, but we punish those that set up shop and bring home jobs here. Let's do exactly the opposite. Polyev government will get rid of the red tape and the gatekeepers, and we'll reform the taxes to bring home billions of dollars of mines, of resource development, and other production right here in Canada.
Can I ask you about bail reform? Can I ask you about bail reform? The justice ministers on Friday, provincially, federally, came to some agreement about moving ahead with bail reform. What would it take for conservatives? What do conservatives want to see in any bail reform package that Minister Lametti might present?
Well, Trudeau's broken bail policy, catch and release policy, is causing a wave of crime right across this country. In Vancouver, the same 40 people were arrested 6,000 times. 40 people, 6,000 arrests. That's 150 arrests per person per year. The criminals laugh at the cops. When they get arrested, they say, "It's morning. I'll see you at noontime," because they know they'll be back out on bail because Trudeau passed a bail reform that allows criminals same-day release even when they have a long rap sheet. So here's the deal. We need common sense bail reform that says that multiple repeat violent offenders who are newly arrested should stay behind bars until their trial, and if convicted, their sentence is complete. That would massively reduce crime. Trudeau has, after 8 years, caused a 32% increase in violent crime, a 92% increase in gang killings. This is all the result of his catch and release policies for repeat violent offenders. Let's crack down on the repeat violent offenders who are causing the vast majority of mayhem in our streets, and let's bring home safe streets for Canadians.
Do you think that first a 6% tax goes into effect on all alcohol?
Yes.
The Finance Committee has already said they want this frozen. The beer industry is saying it's going to be damaging for their sector. Do you have any confidence, and do you think the government will listen, and why do you think that this should be scrapped?
Conservatives believe that now is the worst possible time to raise any taxes. Trudeau's already caused 40% highs in 40-year highs in inflation. Canadians cannot afford to pay any more. They're paying more for heat, housing, and energy. It's almost enough to drive a man to drink, but Trudeau wants to tax you more for that too. We're calling on the Trudeau government to cancel all of its planned tax increases. Its planned tax hikes on energy, through the tripling of the carbon tax, should be canceled. His planned tax increases on alcohol should be canceled, and his tax increases on paychecks should be canceled. Let's bring home lower prices and powerful paychecks.
So is Canada spending too much on Ukraine right now, in your opinion?
I think we need to get results for our money, and we support an end to Russia's illegal and unjustified invasion. What the problem with this government is it's not that they don't spend enough, it's that they don't achieve enough results for the spending they do. They spend too much on back office bureaucracy and not enough on frontline military equipment.
Can you clarify on the Inflation Reduction Act?
This gentleman here, and then
You're saying spend a dollar, cut a dollar for every dollar spent.
Yeah.
What would you cut? You've alluded to some things, but where would the cuts come from?
Well, I would defund the CBC. I would get rid of a lot of the spending on the high-priced consultants. We're now spending $22 billion on high-priced consultants. That's $1,400 for every Canadian. Trudeau has doubled the budget for consultants, as one example. We have to find another example. He's going to be spending $5 billion going after people who are licensed, registered rifle owners, hunters, going into knocking on their doors and trying to confiscate property that they legally acquired. That money should go into frontline border services to protect against the smuggling, which is actually causing the violent crime. So those are some prime examples of how we can reallocate money away from waste and put it on the front lines. Bring home savings, bring home lower costs, bring home powerful paychecks.
Last question. To be clear, on the Inflation Reduction Act, it seems quite universally stated within the finance world and within government that the federal government needs to put tens of billions of dollars on the table to ensure Canada can continue to compete against the $300 billion plus that Biden has put on the table. Do you agree that the federal government should be putting checks on the table to keep business here?
You can't you can write a big check, but if the mine or the factory doesn't get a building permit, it won't happen. And that's the problem, is the government gatekeepers that stand in the way of our businesses. For example, we could have right now 15 LNG export terminals to deliver clean, emissions reducing energy to both Asia and to Europe. It's not because of the absence of government checks that they didn't get built. All of those would have been privately financed. Why didn't they get built? Because Trudeau won't grant building permits to LNG liquefaction facility. No, the context is actually more, it's even more urgent that we speed up building permits for major energy producing projects here in Canada. Trudeau had 15 of these LNG plants on his desk when he became Prime Minister. 0 have been completed because of his government gatekeeping. And as a result, Europe has to rely on Putin for its energy, and Asia has to burn dirty coal into our atmosphere. A Poilievre government will quickly approve LNG and other related projects so that we can ship Canadian energy to Asia and shut down dirty foreign coal. We can ship Canadian energy to Europe and turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Here we go. Take a break. When we come back, I'm going to show you a video that I don't know what to make of it. I'm almost speechless, but what a circus. You're not going to want to miss it. Drag queen story time for kids turns into a huge conflict. Don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So I don't know how many of you have seen what I'm about to show you. Probably not very many. This is video shot by independent journalist John Farina in Wadsworth, Ohio, at a drag queen storytime event that turned into, I don't know how else to describe this, folks, other than a circus. I'm just going to let it roll, and you just watch the footage. I can't believe things have deteriorated to this point, but here we go.
has actually increased since all this has happened, not gone down.
But you know the reason is because Proud Boys are not allowed. Proud Boys are attacking these kids.
Once they realize they made a mistake.
I was there. There's many ways to attack. There's many ways to attack people. You can attack someone verbally. You can attack someone physically. You can attack someone mentally.
The thing is, it wasn't happening until you started bringing it on the
No, very rarely. No, they don't get any rights as a man or woman. Not man, woman.
Hey, Ron, you guys got somebody out here that's causing trouble.
I got a question. I got a question. When's the last time you had a Nazi salute? Right now. Oh, there we go.
Go, boy.
Yeah. Fuck you, you fascist.
You fucking faggot. You faggot. Fuck you,
You can do what that's better. You just sit there and smile.
I said, touches my son. How about if you guys turn your megaphone down to civilized people?
Shut up. Stop threatening people.
Talk like civilized people.
Yeah, keep running them up. You're real quiet. No. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Go run. Keep running.
You look ridiculous out here grooming. Children, who's mine for?
Why don't y'all just back up and get the hell out of here?
Do you know anything about psychology?
Yeah,
you do. Okay, awesome. So you know that entire brain is not fully developed.
Where did you find that European girl?
Developed by the time the 20s, correct. But I'm going to ask you, why is there children over here? Are the children in here?
You're not doing what you're doing to children.
You're doing my generation's life. You're getting shit. Fuck your ass off. Get caught.
Be sure to go sit my phone out. Be sure to go sit my
Are you fucking serious? One guy. As we're escorting him, he attacks us. Don't engage them physically, guys. That was just assault. All right. What was that? There's another one with a microphone and a manual. Come on, people! Living for the victory! the American spirit. Victory! Life! Liberty! Victory! Life! Liberty! Victory! Life! Liberty! Victory! Life! Liberty! Victory! Arrest him!
That's our 703.
You're gonna be somebody's bitch in jail!
You want to see a German man? You want to see a German man? You want to see a German man? You're weak. You're the weakest among us. All of you. You are weak. You have to buy into the bullshit that this government is selling because you're fucking weak. You're weak. All of you. I don't give a fuck. I don't care if you're here for the same damn reason. I don't care. That wannabe Nazi bullshit? Yeah. Let me tell you. Do you know what you're looking at? Go ahead. What, you mad? You mad? You big mad? Are you big mad? Huh?
What are you gonna do? You call us so weak, do something, bitch!
You're weak. You're the epitome of weakness. You gave in because you're weak.
We're here because we're the strongest ones here.
Is that what you think? What do you think you're looking at right now? Yeah? I'm an Appalachian German, you dumb bitch. That's right. I'm ethnically German, you dumbass. I'm a Vandal German. Is that all you got?
You're the worst of our race.
Is that all you got? No. No. Fuck these Nazis. Fuck them all. Because of you, all of us catch all kinds of hell. You realize that? So what? Think about it. Think about it. Why would you do that to harm us? Why? Take your own ass home. You want to be a Nazi?
Am I a Nazi or am I a wannabe Nazi?
You're a wannabe, dude. They've been dead for like fucking years.
Here we are raising the banner, bud. We ain't going nowhere, buddy.
You got nothing to say to me, Fruit Loop. Get the fuck out of my face. Get the fuck out of my face. I'm not standing with you. I'm just fucking first. How about that?
You little kid kissers.
You dumb motherfuckers. None of you.
I'm standing with cheaters. I will see
Look at you shaking. Look at you shaking, man. You're fucking full of adrenaline, man. You're shaking.
Fuck that Nazi flag bullshit.
So real
You have no idea what the fuck the National Socialist is, dude. Go ahead and scream like a pedophile if you want, but you got nothing. That's the extent of your fucking knowledge right there. Your leader is fucking garbage. Did you think that tattoo made you cheap? Is that what you thought?
Leave the kids alone!
You want nothing to do with them, Ford. How many times have you reported and then Antifa said that we were Nazis? You've known me as a patriot for how many years? Do you see me standing up against Nazis? Is that what you see now?
Let's go home! We came here to ruin all of your day. We want you upset. We want you shaking like Mr. Triumph badge. We want you butthurt. Let's go home. Let's go home.
My life matters, Ohio. What do you mean by that? I heard the
slogan, Weimar Condition. What do you mean?
Weimar in the Weimar Republic, it was right before Hitler took power. It was degeneracy. That's the first ever transgender clinic. It was in Berlin, Germany. It's the Institute of Sexology. Albert Hirschfeld, a Jew, coincidence, I'm sure, started it, and the Hitler Youth burned it to the ground. They always tell you what books they burn. They always tell you they burn books. They never tell you what books they burn, and that was it. And the same stuff is happening today.
They were mutilating women and children after they were selling them for sex, and that was outlawed.
The first transgender surgery happened in Weimar.
Yes. So when you say Weimar solutions, you mean the transition out of the...
It means it's time for
rectifying all this shit.
Yeah.
So what would that actually look like?
We'll see when we get there.
Connect the dots, dude.
We're here.
Yeah.
We're here now. This is it.
Of course, I'm trying to get you to say it out loud. We all know what we're talking about here, right? Weimar solution!
Go home! Nazis 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 go home!
Normalized pedophilia is right behind it. And if there's an example in history where that's not the case, please show me. But I can think of about 20 examples, and every single time it's homosexuality is normalized, pedophilia within 10 years is right behind it. Slippery slope. Slippery slope. We saw it coming back in 2005.
You deserve what you tolerate, man. Don't tolerate this shit.
Yet they never tell us what books they burn. The books they burned included transgender ideas, sex changes on little children who were unwilling. The main Jewish professor who organized these such events was Jewish, and he had his own little kid that he had as a sex slave.
Would you believe a few...
How do you mediate that? Oh, man. Society, our countries. Pierre Poilievre was right about one thing. It feels like it's all broken. Makes you, I don't know, just leaves you feeling a little bit hopeless, doesn't it? Got to reach down, dig deep, find inspiration someplace, find a way to carry on, find some way to get back to some sort of sanity. That there. I just don't even want to be there. Quarter to 8. All right, let's take a break. I'll go to the phones briefly tonight. I don't think we're going to carry on too long with the calls. If you haven't called the show before, I would encourage you to do it tonight. It would be nice to have some new callers call in, but if you're a regular, you can call in too. No restrictions. Let's see what people have to say tonight about the economy. What we just watched, I guess. I don't know. I'm almost speechless. Don't go away. More right after this.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, here's the number to call.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, it's time to go to the call-in portion of the show. But before we do that, just a reminder that you can support the channel by liking, sharing, subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing that. Subscribe on YouTube right here. If you do subscribe on YouTube, make sure you hit the notification bell and check out Rumble. The description, the link rather to the Rumble channel is in the description on all the different platforms we're broadcasting on. So you can scroll down, find the Rumble link, and subscribe over there as well. If you're on Facebook, please like and share. That helps the algorithm. It helps push us up in the algorithm. It helps spread the word and get the message out there, and supports independent journalism and free speech, which is what we are really all about here on the Maverick News Channel. That's what the Maverick family is all about, free speech, right? And I guess they were exercising their right to free speech in that video. But talk about polarization. It shows you how extreme things have become. That's in Ohio, Wadsworth, Ohio. And that video again from John Farina, independent journalist in that community, who runs the Status Coup News channel. So if you want to check out his channel, he has other things from his region over there. And good job covering that. Showed both sides, showed all the raw footage, gave you a very good sense of what really happened there. A lot of it unedited, very raw. So you're getting the complete perspective, I think, watching that, or as close as you can hope to get in terms of a complete perspective. But that issue has come to the forefront, especially within what people still describe as the freedom movement. I think that this issue that you these kinds of conflicts that you've seen right here are coming to be front and center within whatever the freedom movement has evolved into in Canada and in parts of the US. It was about medical mandates. things have changed. Okay, let's get to our first callers of the night. Here we go. Go ahead, sir. You're on the air.
Well, good evening, Mr. Rick. How are you this evening?
I am okay. How are you, sir?
I was doing better about 15 minutes ago before I watched the video that you showed.
I understand.
Man. Yeah, I was going to call in last night. I hadn't called in a few weeks. I normally try to call in and give you some encouragement, and I think we all need some encouragement now. So I'm going to start it off with some thanks for what you do. Just stepping right into the video there. I was going to talk about the banking system and, about the banks. This whole thing with the banks, they've known this is coming. And I think we all, anybody paying attention is knowing, but, I'm optimistic and hoping that they, have a plan to delay things for a while, not necessarily knowing whether that's going to be good. Maybe it ought to just come to a crumble and just land wherever we're going to land. I don't know. They know their plan, and I guess we as citizens have to just watch the clown show continue. So, to the video there. I don't agree with anything that
the video. I just want to say, the hope that we would find hope, I think, if they had pro-growth policies, because the only way that I see forward to rescue this economy is to grow out of it, to become productive, to produce more, to increase wealth that way, create enough wealth to start to address debt. But good luck getting the government to do that in any substantial way, I guess. I just don't know. But anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, sir. You're fine. I value your words. I don't. I'm not a smart person. Okay. I'm just a viewer and an enjoyer of the time that I get to spend watching your show. I learn a lot. I feel like I am observant. I think the first time I called in, I told you about a video that I seen way back, and you were talking about how your feelings were as far as what was going on. And I could see your heart and your love for society and the way you want to see things right. So with that being said, it's just with what you just said is that the problem is that there is no indicator of anything that they're doing to send us down a direction of hope. It's like they have picked everything that they could do to fix it, and they went, what can we do that is opposite? And just drive things down. That's just what it appears to me. Now, I'm just an opinion. There's always somebody listening that could argue or debate my point, but that's the way I see it. And it's like, it's problems with non-solution fixing, I guess, is the most just twisted way I could put it. So I don't know, man. Yeah. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a smart person. I can't fix the problems. All I can do is speak an opinion. But as somebody that is a father and a grandfather, there's generations that are growing in my life. And I would like to be able to spend my final years with hope that they would be able to enjoy a society that was somewhat close to what I've enjoyed. And watching that shit on that video, watching the actions on that video does not give me hope.
Yeah, me either.
because once again, the problem is there, and the solution that's fighting it is not any, oh, I don't know. I got to be very careful with my words. The problem is there, and the solution that's standing there is not the answer either.
Right.
And what I watched you I think, in my opinion, what I watched you try to do during the Freedom Convoy anniversary, I can't remember at the moment what it was being called, is you were trying to protect people from stepping into a position that would be most likely harmful for people that are going to try to stand up for what is right. Because it appears that if you're willing to stand up and do something that's wrong, whether it's burn down buildings, set churches on fires, attack police training camps that are trying to be organized, you can get by with all the crap and not get in any trouble for it. But if you happen to do some stupid stuff on another certain date in a certain place to protest and stand up for freedom, then you may end up in jail for 2 years, you know? So with all that being said, it just seems like there's a whole lot more grooming going on in society today, not just in a way of what we just watched, but a grooming of to say, hey, don't stand up for what might be right, because you will get in trouble or get hurt in some way. And it just scares the hell out of me that we have a society that's truly moving in that direction. And as an old man that once again has a family, I'm very concerned about the future for my family.
I appreciate the call, and I hear exactly what you're saying.
I thank you for your time, sir, and I thank you for what you do. You have a good evening.
You as well. Thank you. Okay, who's up next?
You got the mouth of the South, the man without a plan, the master of all disasters, just going over the Bluefield Mountain on the 401 right past your house, Rick.
Well,
Driving
hello,
down the
sir.
401, baby.
I'm waving to you.
So it's going to be a very quick call. A good friend of mine who's a bank executive in finance, he makes roughly about $1.5 million a year just in commission. Okay, he's very well off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'm very good friends with this guy. Last year, around this time, well, it was February, he paid for my trip to Ottawa to go just film it. He loves it. He's on the freedom side of everything, right? He don't believe in the jabs and all that crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
He warned me. He said, Leo, get all your money out of the banks. So what are you talking about? And he warned me about what's going to happen here. Buy gold, buy diamonds, buy something, get your money out of the banks. If you get it out of the banks, get it out of the banks.
Yep.
So he was spot on from what we're going to see. Tomorrow's going to be the eye ringer when they kick the bell at Wall Street in the morning. I'm going to be up watching that one.
Yes.
Because this is just the start, my friend.
You're right.
Right?
I agree.
So a lot of people are going to be nervous. And when the scamdemic first happened too, I had a lot of investments, like normal people, RSPs, TSFAs, all kinds of shit, right?
Yep.
And when it first happened, I tried pulling my money out of the investments. The average phone call to CIBC, this is before I dumped the bank that I was with for almost 30 years, Rick, 50 hours wait time to get to an investment broker to move your investments, to get them out. 50 hours, my friend, on a phone. Nobody was calling me back for 3 weeks. It was crazy. I lost, I don't know, $4 or $5 grand, not much, right? But I was so pissed off because I made the calls. Nobody was answering. Nobody was calling back.
50 hours.
Be very careful, watchers out there. And I swear to God, I'm telling you the truth. On this 50-hour wait call, I was so pissed. 30 years with the same bank. I moved to another bank, but they're all the same at the end of the day, right? You know, we're going to find out in the next couple of days, because I got to start moving money again. We got a problem, Houston. I'm just going to move it to the hole in the backyard, like my grandfather and my father used to do.
Yeah.
They'd bury their money.
You might as well.
So
They don't
be
pay.
very
They don't pay you much interest if you leave with them anyway. So,
Well, the thing is you don't want to be caught in the dark. We see the collapse of where was it? Greece, I think it was.
mm-hmm.
The banks in Greece a few years ago.
That's right.
Okay, you couldn't get money out of an instant teller. You couldn't get money to buy food, gas for your vehicle. None of that crap.
Right.
Okay, it was all said. It was done.
Yeah.
So, if you got money in the bank, don't pull. You don't have to pull it all out. Don't make a run on the bank, but pull out what you're going to need for the next month, because you're going to probably need it. This is just the start of it. And it's going to be very interesting. You got a hot topic here. That's the fact.
Yeah.
With that being said, Rick, always a pleasure. I just passed your house.
Well, thank you, Leo. The pleasure is mine. I always
Have a
appreciate
good day, guys.
your views. Thank you. Okay. And I think we have, is this Andy?
No, it's Sandy.
Sandy. Hello.
How are you, Rick?
I am fine. We haven't heard from you in a little while.
I know it's been a while, but I've been following.
Yes. Well, it's great to hear from you.
So, thank you. You too. I love your show. You're awesome.
You too. So what
You're the
are we,
man of journalism.
yeah, what are we talking about tonight? What do you want to talk about?
I saw that video of the transgender thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's disturbing.
Yeah. Yes.
I was disturbed. I have nieces and nephews, so I'm just going to say this little song, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar.
Mm-hmm.
Who's allowing this?
Who's allowing what? The
Who's allowing these people to protest for gender trans? Because it's where I live too. I see it where I live.
mm-hmm.
And it's disgusting.
Well, I mean, people can, we have free speech, freedom of expression.
I know.
Right?
That's
So
all because it's free speech. And I'm calling because I don't want to swear. It's a shit show.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like to see the conflict. I don't like to see the people square off against each other like that. I find it very disturbing to see people, with their arms in the air and in Nazi salutes.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like the swastika flag. I don't like the polarization and the extremism on all sides. And as I said, this is actually history rhyming or echoing, right? We saw this before World War II in Germany. Exactly this stuff.
Yes. It's you know what you were saying a while ago, it's all coming back, and it's all coming back. It's connecting. Everything is connecting with everything.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And it's appalling because I am sickened with this crap. I see it here where I live in my community. I don't want it in my community.
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at them sideways and they look at you and they're saying to you, why are you looking at me sideways like that? Well, because I'm looking at you sideways because you are.
In my view,
right?
Sandy, the solution comes down to basically people minding their own business and being tolerant and not getting in somebody else's face and forcing your views on somebody else. And that is what we have going on in that video is you have people with very different views that are opposed to each other, and they're out in public and they're fighting because they're trying to impose their views on the other group, when if they would just go mind their own business, go do what they want someplace, not break any laws, obviously not involve children, do whatever the heck you want. But you don't need to be fighting out in the streets with other people. And if everyone would just be tolerant.
When children are and they're underage and they know nothing about it.
Yeah.
They don't know what's going on when they're underage like that.
But
I'm appalled by it.
Yeah, but they have to get out there and fight and square off and turn it into a spectacle and a circus.
The they have to stand there with the deadbeat parents and suck it up because I don't get it. Well, I kind of do, but I don't want to go into it right now.
But I'll say this too, Sandy. What we need to do is not fall into the trap of hate or anger.
No,
or,
I know.
You know, like we have to stay calm, always find forgiveness, always, you know, find love
we
for
need to
people,
pray.
right? But you know, there's a
We need
line.
peace.
There's a line. We need peace. That's right. And
Peace is hard or is easy. I hear that every time on your show. I see it. They post it. Peace is hard. War is easy.
That's right. That's right.
It's true.
Yes.
You know what? I have nieces and nephews, and I hope to God every day in their life they don't go through that or see it.
Yep.
I have beautiful they're nieces, and I treat them. I have nieces and nephews, and I treat them like my own.
Yeah.
I have family like your last caller. Leo has family. We all have family. You know, and it needs to stop. This protesting, do they have a bill for protesting? Well, they should bring one out.
Well, they need to dial things down, you know, walk it back a little bit, stop putting it in other people's faces, whether, you know, on all sides. It's like, back it up, back it up, back it up.
Yep.
Right.
They need a protesting bill. We need a bill. I don't know. Somebody should create a bill.
I don't know. I don't think we need more rules and regulations myself. I think that people just need to just do a little bit more of minding their own business and get out of everybody's face and have a little more tolerance.
Where I live, Rick, what if I told you where I live and if I told you what I saw, and I know you're a journalist, you could come down here and I could show you around where I live. You would not believe what I would show you. I come home just from grocery shopping. Yeah. I'm upset. I am angry. I am crying. And I just can't believe it. And then my family says to me, what's wrong? And then I haven't seen my family in a while. And then I tell them what's wrong. Well, it's nothing to do with you, so don't worry about it. So why am I crying? You know, because I have a heart.
Yeah.
I have a heart, I have a soul, I have a mind, I have a body, and I need to use it, and I need to do something about it before it gets worse. People go home, they close their doors, they shut them out, they shut it out, and they shut it out. Well, you know what? I see it every day. And I'm from Toronto. So, like, they need some sort of bill to back down the protesting. If it's a bill for protesting, stop bringing children involved in it. They don't get it. They don't understand.
I hear you.
And that's the part that makes me angry. That's the part that upsets me because they're going to grow up and they're going to think, what did I do?
Well, you're one of the most positive, uplifting people I know, Sandy. So when you call here and you're upset and angry, I find that upsetting myself. So
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
You know
You're entitled to be upset about whatever you want to be upset about. I'm just saddened that you are upset.
Women hear me roar. So, like, you know, like I never had children, but I love them to death and I treat them like my own.
Yeah.
No child should ever have to live through that garbage.
Yeah, it's inappropriate to bring that.
It's inappropriate. It doesn't make sense. You always say it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Like, look at the Ohio thing going on. I've been upset for like 2 weeks now because of it when it started. And again, my sister says, why are you upset?
Yeah.
Because I don't like what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
I don't get it. There are people out there that will try to destroy it because of this, and this. And you know what? I'm not going to be one of these people. I am a good-hearted citizen, and I'm retired. And you know what? I live my life day by day, one day at a time, and I live it well.
Yeah. Well, I know you're a good
That's
person.
all we need.
I know you are.
Thank you. And that's all we need to do.
That's it.
There's nothing more. I don't understand how certain people in this world get away with that sort of garbage.
Well,
I really don't.
we have a lot of work to
Like
do,
John-
I guess.
Yeah, like John says, he puts his trash out. So do I. And when I put my trash out, I think of something that's negative that's happened. Guess what? The trash is out.
Yeah.
Put the trash out. It comes every week. You can put it out.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rick, but you know
okay.
what? I love your show, and I listen and I watch and I try to call in. And when I do call in, I hope you understand. And it's just, there's a actually garbage crisis going on.
Yeah.
And it's not just where I live, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So Greta Thunberg, you should watch her.
Okay.
Watch Greta. This girl is on the, she knows what's going on. She sees it.
Well, we could have
I
a,
hope
we'd
you
have,
like her.
I'm not a big Greta Thunberg fan. I think she
is young. She's young.
She scares people. She's a tool being used for political purposes. She's too young to really have a full grasp of what she's talking about. That's not
I
real,
wish I was
man.
her.
That's propaganda.
I wish I was her.
Anyway, Sandy, we love you here, and thank you very much for calling. We're going to move on, and I look forward to
guys.
and I look forward to you calling back. And hopefully
Happy
next time
March
we'll have
break.
something more positive to talk about.
Yeah, it'll be a better one.
Okay. Thank you. You have a great night. Okay, see ya.
You too, hon. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, is it Lucian? Hi, who do we have on the line?
No, Richard.
Oh, hi, how you doing?
Richard?
Yes.
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I was listening about some of the things we say about the economy.
Mm-hmm.
Some ideas will have people can take control of their own life if our economy collapse is get back to the basics. I'm 41 years old, and when I was a kid, I remember my grandmother having a garden backyard that produces the food, most of the food what she needs for the year, and encouraging people to not be focused on all the craziness, but more focused on the basic needs of yourself and how you can network with people in your neighborhood, like maybe a neighbor across the street.
Yeah.
You might make something and you might make something and see if you exchange it, or like one of the early callers said, have some silver or gold on hand, or at least some silver. So if hyperinflation hits like it does every fiat currency, you can soften the blow in the short term with things you can do on the micro level that might change the major picture.
Sure.
What do you think, Rick?
I certainly agree with that. You can do a lot of things to free yourself from the system by making yourself more independent. Like I'm self-employed. I fix my own things. I try to not engage in the economy more than I have to. I try to not be dependent on other people or economies or companies rather. I try to be as independent as I can be so that I'm not held hostage by the system. So, when the pandemic hit, I didn't have to get the Kool-Aid because I didn't have an employer trying to force me to do that, right? But other people don't have that luxury. But if you have a garden in the backyard, then you can grow some of your own food. That eases the impact of an economic downturn or maybe even unemployment. But that's not a complete solution for anybody. No man is an island, as they say, right? You're still part of the system,
right?
And it's difficult to decouple yourself entirely from it unless you denounce your citizenship or give it up and leave the country and move someplace else and participate in some other society in some other location. But that's not in the cards for most people.
That's right. But what we can do is look who we can network with.
Yep.
And also partial solution can some are food as well as have that social network of like-minded people, and we do our best, like the Mennonites or the Amish. They're connected with
I gotta say that I have to say this, as no matter how bad things get, people will find a way to survive. We will find a way to make our society work. And even if everything completely collapses, we will rebuild. So there's always a future, no matter what happens, folks. Don't panic. Even if everything completely collapses, we as a society will prevail. We will survive. We will find a way. We always have. People always will. It's just the way it is. Even when the former Soviet Union collapsed, they rebuilt, and now they have what is Russia today. You look at any country, any society where things have completely collapsed, people always rebuild. It's a struggle, but there's always a future, no matter what. If the currency is devalued to zero, it's an opportunity to reset. And that's the other thing people need to understand too, that even when things collapse, if you see the stock market crash, you know what that really is? That's also an opportunity. People who educate themselves, prepare, they can actually take advantage of those opportunities too. So there's always a silver lining in the darkest cloud. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but don't completely lose hope and don't panic. There's always a solution and a way to fix things, no matter how much and how hard the politicians work to break everything and how much incompetence there is in government. We're going to be okay in the long run.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate being on the Maverick. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the call. Let's move on to Isabel.
Take care.
You too, sir. Hello. How are you tonight?
I'm fine. How are you, Rick?
I'm okay. Go ahead.
It's just Isabel here. It's a little disturbing when I see that video. I mean, like the other callers, I'm up in age, so I fear for my grandchildren.
Yeah.
The only thing I have, I guess, my positivity is that my grandchildren are now hitting their 20s. Some of them, not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been raised with the old school theory. There's right, there's wrong. You speak when you have to. You keep your mouth shut when you don't have to. Think what you want, but watch what you say. That's always been a rule for my grandchildren. You can think what you want, but watch what you say, because what's in your brain's not going to get you in trouble, but it's what comes out the trap door.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
true.
and that is, I mean, I look at that and I think, oh my God, okay, these people, they're not in their right mind, and that's my opinion, taking children to a drag show when half of them don't even know what their genitals are for, and they're being dropped into this society. And I often think, do these parents really go along with this, or is this because they just want to be in the forefront? Because I'm sure if their kids were indoctrinated and then prostituted or used in the sex trade, are they still going to be yay drag show?
Highly unlikely.
And this is the thing. It's like, there's the other side of the coin. Yeah, show them the drag show. You think that's great, but this is all a sexuality, and some of that sexuality is pornographic, and it's into the sex trade.
Bottom line is,
it.
you know, drag shows are not are adult entertainment, and it's not appropriate to take that kind of thing to kids. It just isn't.
No. I mean, do what you want behind closed doors. You're an adult. You can answer for yourself.
Yeah.
A child hasn't even got a developed brain, and we all know that. You just watch a 15-year-old going, oh, yeah, I got it. And you warn them, and something happens, and they go, I should have listened. Yeah, a little late, isn't it? I don't know. I think all these people like to be in the forefront, and I think watching that video, that's basically what it is. They get out there, they want their say, they want to be televised, they want a big hoopla. We've had that, but it's always been in the background, and you kind of, with dignity, you don't need to shove it down my throat, because I don't shove my opinion down your throat.
Well, that's just it, isn't it? It's like people tend to take things just too far. Regardless of what side you're on, and on a political issue, people always need to keep on pushing, it seems. They just never know when to quit.
They don't know when to quit. And to me, I look at it and go, man, what a bunch of grandstanding.
Yeah.
Sitting back, looking at it from my age level. I mean, we went through well, maybe you didn't, but I went through the 60s where it was make love, not war, burn the bra, yada, yada. And it was like, yeah, and the older people looked at it and go, fool.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Like I said, I'm thankful that 3 of my grandchildren are not in fully teenage yet, but being raised by old school with my daughter. And the same thing with my son. My son is like he totally believes in karma. If you give good, you're going to get good.
Yeah.
And he is a pacifist type of nature. Me, on the other hand, I have a quick fuse, but I learned to keep my mouth shut, and I learned to keep my opinions and my thoughts when I close my house door.
Yeah.
Regardless of how angry I get, I can do a lot of yelling within my unit, and I'm sure my neighbors don't like it. But when I get down in the rabbit hole, I crank up the rock and roll. Or I will clean the house top to bottom because I have OCD. By the time I'm finished doing that, I'm so exhausted, I got no fight left.
I hear you.
You know, I don't know, but I hear Sandy, and yeah, I see that it gets her upset. I live in such a small community of 2,000 people. We don't have that problem yet. And it's mostly a seniors community, even though it's a country village. We're just up the road from you in Glencoe. So it's like they are moving more people in here, but we haven't seen that happen yet. And I'm sure the generation gap is going to clear the air, because it's just stuff we're not going to put up with. But it would be done not like that, screaming and yelling. There's other ways around it.
Yeah. We need to deal with things in a calm, cool, rational manner.
Instead of screaming your head off. Like,
yeah.
In my day, the older people would look at you and go, give it a break. Like, okay, give it up. That's it. You're done. You did your little show. We heard you. It's over. Move on.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what this little parade that they showed on the video, it was all grandstanding as far as I'm concerned. Everybody yelling at everybody.
Well, you know,
I
there's
do not agree.
Yeah, there's a saying, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so if you're living in some degree of harmony, but then you start to try to impose your views and you just push it too far, you're going to get a reaction back on the other side. And that's what we're seeing here. And I kind of feel like I'm like, I think most people are probably like me. You feel like you're caught in between a bunch of crazy people who have become extreme in their views and their actions. And they're acting in extreme ways against each other. And I think what we're witnessing in that video tonight is not so much the normality that's out there, or that's not indicative of what our society is. That, I think, is an expression of the extremism that is being amplified and focused on right now. It's not a reflection of what the average person or what our society overall is still, but
no,
these people are getting a lot of profile, especially because of social media and these kinds of events where it's just front and center. It's like being put in front of our faces, right?
And they have to bring it to our, what I don't understand is now where that drag, I know you said Ohio, but the location of that drag show didn't look like it was in a populated area.
Yeah, it looked like it was on like some sort of a, what would I say, like a nature trail, maybe with, I don't know exactly where it was. I'm not sure. It's in Wadsworth, Ohio. It looked like a conservation area of some kind, maybe with some buildings, you know, one of those kind of places.
That's what I thought. I thought it was like a gazebo on like a campground area or something.
Yeah, maybe like a nature place. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel these other groups deliberately found out that was there. They had to go there. It wasn't in a populated area like I've seen it where Boston Pizza had it. Yeah. And the people were outraged in Canada here in Ontario. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a prominent place. You don't have it in an establishment like that. But this was like out in like you said, a conservation area. Looks like it was a large gazebo on some campground somewhere.
Yeah, normally for something like that. My guess is they probably had it in there's probably like a building that the government has, right? The community, like a community center on site there, and they probably had their event in there. I don't know. I'm just watching the video like you guys, and that's as much information as I have. And you know, I offered it up tonight to show you how extreme things have become and how crazy overall, and we just need to get away from that, in my view.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that the drag show was there, but I think these other groups found out it was there and deliberately went to that area to cause trouble.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
You know, like, why go seek it out? What's the purpose of seeking it out? So that you can grandstand for a video?
Yeah. Well, they feel strongly about it too, right? So and it's an opportunity for them to get in front of a camera and talk and express their views on other aspects of their political ideology that go beyond the reason they're supposed to be there. You know, they're talking about Nazism, and then the camera's there and they get to talk about that in a larger way. So they get profiles. So they know, you know, you're right about that.
Yeah. And what happens is you get other people that will go, oh my God, is this really happening? And now you're going to crank up them. So then you're going to get the infiltrators like we had at the Freedom Rally.
Yes. But you know what? Here's the thing. I offer this video here tonight because it's not just infiltration, it's indoctrination. And even within the freedom movement, I'm telling you, folks, these folks are within the freedom movement too. And you have people who are equally as extreme with their political views and ideologies on the other side of the political spectrum in Canada and the US. It's this, we're getting more and more polarization, more extremism on both sides, on all sides, really. And we need to recognize it, call it out, see it for what it is, and address it. We can't afford to just ignore it or think that it's just over in the corners or the shadows anymore. You can see it clearly there in Ohio. That's what I spent more than a month talking about here, about what was going on, right? This is what I've been talking about. And there it is for everyone to see. It's on full display. So don't sit there and think that this is just like an isolated incident or that this is just some crazy people who are just in the shadow. No, they're among us. And I'm tired of people defending them or protecting them or trying to hide them because they're maybe embarrassed even by them. So they just don't want people to look at them, but they tolerate them. And it's like, no, we need to address this wherever it pops up. All this extremism all the way around, and calm people down and pull people back to, I think, the center and to some place of reality. Because a lot of what we're seeing there is because of information they're being fed, where these people are being manipulated because they're being fed information that is not actually based in truth or reality.
No, that's true. That's true. And it needs to be called back. And like you say, with the way it's going, it's gotten to the point where it's overflow. It definitely is overflow. And there's no doubt about that. And it is time to call it back.
And look, I was watching a guy who's supposed to be a freedom fighter. I was watching one of his videos tonight. I'm not going to mention his name. I'll address it maybe later if I need to. But I was watching what he was doing, and he was scaring people and feeding them half-truths to manipulate them. I was watching it again tonight, and he's getting a bigger and bigger following all the time. It's very disturbing. And it's because of stuff like that going on that we end up seeing stuff like I just showed you tonight. I'm tired of it. But I'll continue to do what I do here to expose it in the best way that I can. And if people want to attack me rather than deal with the actual problem, then so be it. That's fine. Because I'm not gonna put up with it.
No, you have a platform where, and I thoroughly enjoy it, like the rest of the Maverick Nation. You put it forward, you explain it from both angles or 3 angles or ever how many angles there are. We get to look at it with a clear mind rather than, and I've seen some of these videos, oh my God, the world's ending, and oh my God, we got to do this. And you get people's excitement up. They think this is the end of the world. It's like Chicken Little running around. And some of the people who don't do the research or don't follow someone like you who has done the research and the knowledge enough to take it on a calm platform and let's look at it this way. Here it is. We'll roll out the dough and we're going to check it out, see what there is. These other guys get these people so scared, so terrified into the anxiety level, and they react without thinking.
They do.
And this is our problem.
You have and you have a lot of people living a life of paranoia now. You know, I see it.
Yeah.
And that's where the extremism comes from.
Yeah, I went through the paranoia for a while before I latched onto you last year, the middle of last year.
Yeah.
And as soon as I latched onto you, the anxiety level came down. I mean, there's sometimes where I'll see something and go, oh my God, and I go, well, wait a minute. I'm going to go check that. And then I go to check it, and there's nothing else to check it on. And I'm like, oh God, I fell into the hole again.
Yeah.
I got to stay out of the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well,
But
around here, I've decided that what we need to be doing around here is we need to start pulling people out of those rabbit holes. Pull them out.
Yes.
And bring them
Yeah.
back to a place of reality. Not to say that there aren't problems out there, but there are ways to deal with problems. That's what we're
Yes.
going to do here.
But you give an insight sometimes to say, okay, it's really bad, but remember when this was good? Remember we could go and do this today. So when I get to that point, I'm like, sun's shining, gonna put my coat on, gonna go for a walk. I don't have to drive my car. Right. Everything I need is right here within 2 blocks.
Yep.
So it's great. I can go out and I can do that, clear my head, clear the air, come back in.
Yep.
And rethink where I'm going. And if I get too bad at it, then there's the physical. I'll clean the house so I'm so exhausted my brain can't think anymore. Yeah. Oh, okay, that was that. But you know what I think too? A lot of what our younger generation has grown up with is disposability. Everything is disposable. We don't fix anything. Just get another one.
Right.
We weren't raised that way. We were raised with, you put money out on it, you spent the money on it, you take care of it, you maintain it, you repair it.
Right.
But they don't look at it that way. So everything has become disposable.
Yes.
And now it's even being disposable lives.
Yeah.
Which is wrong.
Yep.
It's just wrong. I won't keep you, but I wanted to let you know, even though I didn't sign in tonight, I'm still watching you.
Thank you.
And I always will. You bring me back out of the rabbit hole. So that's I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. And thank you very much for calling in tonight. Great.
Okay.
Call.
You have
Great
a good
call.
night, Rick.
You too. Take care.
Well,
okay. Let's just click on that. Click on that. That's excellent. Okay. That gets us to 8:39 p.m. on this 12th day of March 2023. We are going to wrap it up with that, folks. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight and sharing this time with myself and the Maverick family here. Again, if you haven't liked, shared, subscribed, please consider doing that. Hit the like button. That really helps push us up in the algorithm. Really, really does. Subscribe. If we get the subscriptions up, that really helps too. And yeah, I just can't say thank you enough for choosing to spend your time here tonight. We're trying to defend everyone's right to free speech. I'll be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.